Well, thank you for being here, and thank you for having me. It'll be a good idea for those who wish to use the excellent translation service to take up that option right now. So, assuming that I was listening to a very fair translation, I've been wondering what I should do with these few minutes, and it seems to me that the best thing I can do for the audience here tonight is to give you an insight into the world of clean tech as I see it, and indeed as we see it. So my name is Richard Youngman. I am the managing director of a company called Cleantech. And since 2002, our role in life has really been to monitor the development of young technologies, but really we're watching the development of companies who are developing technologies. And why are we doing that is because we believe that this is the next wave of innovation that is going to last decades, in the similar way that we believe the information technology revolution started with us in the 50s and 60s and is only still accelerating rather than slowing down 40 to 50 years later. So first thing to make sure we all understand at least what I mean by clean tech. So clean tech fundamentally is about an economic productivity question. We are interested in technologies that allow us to do more with less. And that spans a range of technologies and a range of industries, some of which are illustrated on the screen. And a key point really that I want to leave this group with tonight is when you think of clean tech, think much broader than just energy. So just so you understand a little bit about who we are effectively providing news, research and conferences to track upcoming companies who are developing technologies. We do that for the benefit of the investment community, and more these days we're doing that for the benefit of the buyers of technology. So large corporations, public authorities of one sort or another, who have a need to change either their business or perhaps, given tonight's subject, the face of our urban systems and infrastructures. So think of us as monitoring and watching and interacting with this community. These are a series of relationships and transactions that we think are at the core of developing clean technologies that will make a contribution to controlling climate change, hence the connection there, and will make a contribution to changing the way we think of mobility over the next 5, 10, and indeed 50 years. So what I wanted to do really was just give you a very quick tour around the major subjects and themes that come up in the world we are tracking. And this is just a picture really to show that over 7 years we've seen a massive rise in venture investment. And if you were to look over and above and consider how small venture capital is in the world of larger capital, then I think you have some sense that this has grown from a very small niche area of business to one that is worth many hundreds of billions. Geographically, it is breaking down something like this, and I guess one of the interesting points to bear in mind here is the US has dominated in the numbers of investment at a time when you've had a presidential administration that, by most people's accounts, has been relatively environmentally unfriendly. And this really shows you the disconnect between the business opportunity and public policy. I was asked to talk a little bit about where energy fit into this world, and so really the major point I'm making on this particular slide is to say that whilst energy generation technologies are dominant at around about 60% of the dollars being invested, that is partly because they are the most capital intensive areas. It's partly because energy generation is a huge issue. But on the other hand, I want to leave you with the thought that there are many other areas in this world of which transportation is one. And if you were interested to know, solar technology is really the dominant theme under energy generation and accounts for about a third of the dollars the billions of dollars that have been invested in next generation technologies in the last 2-3 years. Biofuels, I'm going to pick on 4 areas really that of the last 2-3 years have taken the major headlines. Biofuels being the second and representing about 10 to 15% of the overall total. What is interesting here is the switch over from biofuels that were based on feedstocks to biofuels that are based on the second generation of waste and other sources. A key area, and I think we're now getting closer and closer towards the area of interest of this group, because energy generation from renewable sources is great. One of the major problems we have in energy, one of the major problems we have in transportation is all about energy storage. And thereby there is a very close relationship between the investment in each of these areas. We can come back to this as necessary, but just to show you that transportation is an area of interest, whether we're talking about investment going into electric vehicle manufacturers themselves or technologies to make current technologies more fuel efficient. These are all aggregated together in this graph. So I guess what I wanted to say at this point really was that what we feel, I think one of the other areas I was asked to comment about is about the current sort of financial crisis. I think there's sort of 2 or 3 things to say. One is to say that we'd be of the belief on a long-term basis it will have a short-term impact on what is a growth area, and you've already seen that in one of the opening graphs. I think the first cleantech boom is finished, but when I describe this as a wave, I describe it very deliberately as a wave, just like the IT wave has had many ups and downs. This will have many ups and downs. And 2009 is really actually quite a fascinating time, not just because it's the first time we've seen, if you like, the ever upward rise be challenged, but because we're starting to see the role of public policy, which has always been very important in this area. Suddenly the role of government has become super critical, and that has a strong relationship with the announced stimulus packages of various governments around the world. So when you put this into perspective and you look back in history and you look at and try and make adjustments for when governments have intervened in the past, we have an opportunity here that is like no other in a sense. Given the amounts of monies that various governments are saying they're going to spend to stimulate the economy,